Start the clock. We are 23 days away from hitting the debt ceiling. That's the day that the Treasury Department says, November 5th, that the government runs out of cash to pay its bills and obligations. On your screen, some of these things. The National Highway Trust Fund runs out of money October 29th. Federal budget expires December 11th. Treasury secretaries throughout the years have called it doomsday, and they say unless Congress votes to lift the debt ceiling, which, by the way, it has done 49 times since Ronald Reagan took office, all the way through Bush 41, Bush 43, Clinton, Obama, it could cause massive dislocations in the stock and bond market. Social Security checks won't go out. Military won't get paid, a possible government shutdown. And so what's the worst case scenario? If you don't believe any of that's going to happen, the U.S. government defaults on debt interest payments. That's the worst case scenario. Many Republicans say the only way we should raise the debt ceiling, though, is to pair it or couple it with spending cuts. That's been done occasionally over the years, but many years to avoid massive turbulence, it's been automatically raised without conditions. Why aren't the presidential candidates talking about it? Why aren't journalists asking about it? Well, we at Fox Business are, because we want you to be ready for the what ifs. Will this issue separate the men from the boys, so to speak? I'm joined now by Dr. Terry Madonna. He's director of polls at Franklin and Marshall College. We're also bringing in Ron Christie, a GOP strategist and former special assistant to President George W. Bush, and Craig Varoga. He's Democratic strategist. Dr. Madonna, I want to begin with you. Even though we hit the debt ceiling a full year before the presidential election, could this be a seminal issue? I mean, you want to be a candidate telling grandma she can't get her Social Security check, or a vet he won't get his benefit payments? How big a deal is this for the candidates?
Well, let's recall a little history. We had, a government shutdown for 15 days, October 1 to October 16 in 2013. Now, admittedly, we were heading into a midterm election. At the end of the day, the Republicans picked up 247 seats, the largest majority that party has had since Hoover was president of the United States, and also picked up control of the Senate. Without a government shutdown, if it's just a debt ceiling situation, which you have described the importance of it, it's not the thing that the average voter gets motivated by. It's not the thing that the average voter pays much attention to. And we've had government shutdowns before, as I think you've alluded to. We've raised them, certainly, but we've had them during Ford. We had them during Carter. Clinton had two, one of them 21 days. George Herbert Walker Bush had them.
That actually hurt the GOP, did it not?
Yeah, well, marginally so. There were many other factors involved in why the Clinton shutdowns, hurt the GOP, then in control of both houses of Congress. But materially, unless it carries over well into next year, the voters will be into middle class wage, income gap. They'll be into jobs. They'll be into the possibility of a foreign security, international security situation. At the moment, I don't see this at the moment as a transcendent issue.
Well, we had DeRoy Murdoch, who's a conservative columnist, in the last hour of Neil Cavuto's show, and he said that when you do something like that and you push it to the brink, as some GOP members would like to do because they feel they should get something in order to raise this one more time, Ron Christie, he called that, he said it's a really bad idea. In fact, you really don't want to do something like that, he said, because it really tends to gyrate the stock market, which our viewers care about, the bond market possibly. Do you expect that you'll see GOP candidates and voters, Senate and Republicans, on the House side, starting to push on this issue?
Oh, I don't think there's any doubt about it. Now, the Republican
Ron Christie, sorry.
Yes. Hey, Liz, I'm up here in Manchester, New Hampshire at St. Anselm College, and actually today there's a forum where I've heard from 8 of the presidential candidates that are running, and one of the things that struck me, they're talking about jobs, they're talking about Putin, they're talking about all these things, but what they haven't really hit on is the importance of what happens if we keep butting up, as my friend DeRoy Murdoch mentioned, against this debt limit. I think those who are looking at Wall Street, those who are looking at the bond market, those who are in the mercantile industry are saying we don't have any sense of stability. we don't want to put any long-term investments into what the government's going to do because we have that uncertainty. I think it's a short-sightedness and, frankly, a lack of understanding of how business works and how our capitalist system works, and it's something that I certainly think that their advisors should be a lot more attuned to, because if they keep playing this brinksmanship, the market is going to have the sense of they're not serious in Washington and we're not going to unleash our capital.
It sends a terrible message. I believe DeRoy used the term sabotage. You see on this screen, keep it up, Carly Fiorina and John Kasich, who are candidates. They won't be voting on it because they're not members of Congress right now. She's a former business person and he ran the House Budget Committee. Both of them say, don't fool around with the debt limit. Raise it and argue about issues later. Don't mess around with this. Craig, you have Democrats, in essence, pretty much saying raise it. You know, Democrats are known to say, let's spend the money and let's move on. But at some point, don't you have to hold the government accountable and say, OK, fine, we'll raise it so we don't have these dislocations in the market. But at some point, we've got to get smarter about spending so much money.
Look, I mean, I think that there's a legitimate discussion that everybody can have about economic policy. But shutting down the government and acting like that's a normal course of business is foolish, and it's bad for business. As Ron just pointed out, you know, the more the government's dysfunctional and the more that we play these games of brinkmanship, the more we're going to endanger the economy. And as you pointed out in the beginning, if people don't receive their Social Security checks or if all the national parks are closed, people are going to notice, and it is going to be a problem.
And doctors won't get their Medicare reimbursements. There are all kinds of issues. Okay,
absolutely.
Let me just say that Ben Carson, a candidate, was asked about this on another network. We have the soundbite. He seemed to confuse the debt ceiling with the government's budget. Look, we understand it's a complicated subject, but hear what Ben Carson said, and then we can talk about it, Dr. Madonna. Oh, we don't have the soundbite. I'm so sorry. He did say he wouldn't sign anything that increases our obligations. Right. Hiking the debt ceiling does not increase obligations. The obligations were already voted upon and agreed to by Congress. So are you going to default on that? It sends a terrible message. No, Dr. Madonna?
Yeah. Yeah, oh, certainly. I mean, I agree. There shouldn't be, you know, a default. There's no way the government should shut down. That makes no rational sense on any level.